Welcome to Zenergy, the interactive podcast providing resources for building a better life. I am Zenashe. I am a coach, a conduit, and a catalyst that launches humanity into greatness by accelerating mindset changes and replacing limitations with possibilities. And today we're at the end of Women's History Month, and I have a woman on the podcast with me. Also, we are at the end of National Reading Month, and she happens to be an author. So I'm going to introduce to you Megan Wall. Say hi to the people. Okay. Let's see. Hold on. For some reason, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I
There
went
we
ahead
go.
and put it on mute so I wouldn't interrupt your introduction and then forgot to turn it on. So super special moment for me. Hello, everybody. So nice to see you. And thank you so much for having me today, Zanasha. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for reaching out to me. So today's podcast episode is called Integrate to Elevate. And integration can mean a lot of things, but in this setting, we're going to be talking about personal integration. We're going to be talking about basically integrating all the parts of ourselves and all the experiences that we've had so that we can actually change and grow and also accept ourselves where we are because we are
Exactly.
wonderful people. Even though we may
Yes.
not be perfect people, we still
No.
are wonderful people. And so
Perfection is quite boring. Yes.
that's a good way of saying it. So, years ago, when I first started this podcast, I went A to Z, writing down a bunch of different topics that I felt were really important to self development and becoming your best self. And so I wrote down integration because I felt like sometimes people lose themselves on the journey to success and they wake up and they don't know who they are and they don't know how they got there. And I think that we have to stop and take stock. We have to stay in contact with ourselves, with our goals, with our priorities, with our mindset. We have to integrate, the changes that are happening and actually take stock of whether we like those changes or not. And then also we have to accept what we learn about ourselves along the journey because as we step into
Yes,
different roles and have different challenges, we can learn some things about ourselves that we might not know.
it's
So
true.
I
Yeah.
wanted to start off with asking you, why did you pick the topic of integrate or integration?
So, I mean, you had so many wonderful topics to choose from. And as I was reading through it, I was just, yes, it's that and that and that. Integration really is just, it's a powerhouse, right? It includes everything. And one of the things that I personally have failed at in the past, and it's one of those really, really good linchpin moments for me, was just realizing that if I don't integrate my success, then I'm suddenly defining myself by it. Now I've lost my entire self just in favor of this one aspect of something that really is supposed to be part of a greater whole. And it cut me off. I cut myself off so much from people that could give me good guidance, good impotence. I cut myself off from joy, from happiness, from peace internally because I started to define everything by that success. And the success is good, but it's not everything. If it doesn't integrate back into the parts of yourself that maybe are a little bit darker, maybe are a little less, smooth and perfect, we've lost the authenticity of that success, which really is what ends up bringing us the best success over time. Because when we bring our authentic selves to the table and we maintain that authenticity, then we continue to get more of a possibility and more growth throughout our future. But if we define, oh, I made success here, this is where I stop, then we're only clinging to this one piece of our lives. And it's not supposed to be like that. It's not supposed to be, we're not a static tableau, always stuck in one spot and then trying to push away from that. It's more along the lines of we're climbing a ladder of ourselves, and every rung that came before that matters. And so we don't want to cut the ladder off underneath ourselves, and we don't want to pull the ladder up behind us. So that's, I think, the reason I chose that topic specifically is we're not static creatures. We're dynamic. We need growth. We need this ability to stretch and kind of find that level of discomfort. Comfort is so very sexy to all of us. Like, all of us feel the inertia of comfort. We don't want to get out of bed in the morning. I'm so cozy. Who wants to leave this bed?
Right.
But if I leave the bed, I accomplish so much more than an afternoon of playing Skyrim, which does happen. Okay. Um, but I don't accomplish anything with Skyrim, right? I had fun. It's just going to be kind of this little vague memory in the background of, oh, what a lazy Sunday I had. And so at any rate, those are my thought processes with it, is we are not defined by our moments of peace. I wish we were, but that waits for us. That waits for us all. Eventually we'll all have that moment of peace. We don't know what it looks like and we can't anticipate it, but we know it's coming. So what we have right now is appreciation for peace, right? It's understanding and appreciating what we will eventually be given by the end of whatever you want to call this. And I'm fully for what everybody wants to call it. I've heard all the curse words and all the good words, and it is what you define it to be.
Well, I think you said a lot of things there. I think success, both of us are in America, both of us are in Texas. And there's a lot of people coming to Texas right now. We're considered a big melting pot of a lot of things. But a lot of people come here because they feel like there's a lot of opportunity here. They feel like they can be more successful here. We have one of the biggest ports, in the nation. And so we have people coming from all over and doing international work and business and trade. But success itself, what does that even mean? And are you defining it for yourself? And if you do reach that success, are you feeling like, I've peaked, or I'm going to go to the next higher rung? So I think that is a question in itself. As you integrate it, like you said, as you take that success in, because I think sometimes people don't integrate it, and then am I an imposter? Do I deserve this?
Yep.
And some of us have been taught some very negative things about success, about rich people, about those people,
Those people. Yeah.
those people we are not those people. And so again, we have to integrate that, because there are so many mindset changes that can happen as you're attaining success.
Absolutely.
You have to, like I said, integrate. I am a person who has accomplished this, and only a certain percentage, like even us both being authors, I think there's only like 8% of the population that are female authors. That's very small percentage. So you and I are part of a very small group,
percentage. Yes.
know?
Teeny tiny.
And who am I to write a book even? Who am I to think that people want to read what I have to say?
Exactly.
So again, integrating, yes, I do have a voice. Yes, I have achieved some success. Yes, there are some people who might not like that, but that's okay too.
Yes.
And then staying true to ourselves on that journey. Because again, I mentioned people losing themselves when they become successful. Some people feel like, I got to change my hair. I got to change my makeup. I got to change my style of dress. And you may choose to do that, but feeling like you got to and you want to are two different things.
Very different things. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so
the more that
is powerful, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more that internal pressure builds up, the harder it is to tell, what's me and what's this other thing. And it really does boil down to integration is all about grace, right? It's this internal grace that we're giving ourselves and the people around us, right? We can't expect for the world around us to allow us to change if we sit there and every time, well, last year you said blah, blah, blah. If we're going to constantly be like, well, you're not allowed to change. How dare you? Last year you said this terrible item.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's fine, because I've also said some terrible things in my life and immediately recognized, that I should not have said that. And then it's taken me years in other ways to be like, wow, I really flubbed that. I really said something in a way that might have hurt somebody's feelings or put somebody down or wasn't, just aware of what other people might be going through. And I had to give myself a whole heck of a lot of grace to forgive myself for those things. So there's this grace of forgiveness that we give ourselves, and if we're going to really do that well, it must be extended outwards. We have to allow for that grace and that change in other people, because if we structure them, we're also structuring ourselves in that way. We set our own limitations by limiting others. So it's a very tit for tat, I think, kind of way of looking at things. But it is like, I will say to people all the time, grace. Give yourself a little bit of grace. Like, we can't always have peace. That's fine. But we can still at least attempt for that grace. You can use curse words and still be graceful. It's fine.
You know, I love having a podcast because I feel like sometimes a guest comes on and gives such a nugget. And that nugget you just gave is integration is grace, and it's the grace that we give ourselves and that we give others. And I think
Right.
that is so powerful and so beautiful. I think about nature a lot, and nature is a great example of grace. And I just started, I am not a gardener. I am not. Okay. I have killed a bunch of plants, but I
Oh,
still
yeah.
want to try. In COVID, we were all stuck in our houses. One of the things I did start doing was growing some herbs and things like that. And I loved it because I could cook with them. I could put
Heck
them in my
yeah.
tea.
Hmm.
And so now this year I decided I wanted to try flowers. So I saw these beautiful lotus, you know,
Hmm.
flowers. And they're like, oh, we can send you this big bag of 150 lotus, seeds. And the thing
Hmm.
about the lotus, right? I just started in February. So you literally have to put the lotus seeds in water, and they take several weeks, like 2 weeks, to even start to bud. And this little
Hmm.
green shoot starts to stick out. Now let's
Yep.
talk about grace. When we start to grow, just like in nature, sometimes that growth is not pretty. Those green, it almost looked like a spider web coming out of
Yep.
coming out of that flower. Now I'm planting. I want to plant flowers. I want to plant these big, beautiful blooms, but
Hmm.
it's starting almost looking like a a filmy spider
Gross.
web kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now they've gotten to the point, it's at the end of March, where they've got these beautiful, what look kind of like lily pads. I still don't have any flowers. It's been almost a month and a half. I have no flowers yet. They look like
Yep.
lily pads right now, but the little lily pads are beautiful. But I'm realizing that that's the way we are sometimes. As we're growing and integrating these changes, we have ugly moments. Some of us can
Oh,
look back
yeah.
at our, elementary school or our middle school pictures, and we had all arms and legs going everywhere. We had teeth missing. We were
Oh,
not
yeah.
fully developed yet. We went through our ugly stage. And
Hmm.
even the story of the ugly duckling is, about not fitting
Oh,
in
yeah.
and not realizing how beautiful you are, that you're a swan because you're comparing
Hmm.
yourself to the ducks, and you were bigger
Absolutely.
than them and you were gangly, but now you got this beautiful long neck. So to give ourselves grace as we integrate different parts of ourselves, as we grow into who we are. I think some of us have to grow into who we are. We
Oh,
don't,
yeah.
we don't, we're not mature at 18 just because we're
Hmm.
called an adult. We haven't
Hmm.
grown into who we are. We haven't grown into that full person that we are.
Hmm.
And so we have to give ourselves grace as we integrate the lessons that we need, as we integrate, acceptance of ourselves, as we integrate even the goals that we want to have. Who do we want to be? What do we want
Yeah.
to do? What is our purpose? All those kind of
Absolutely.
things. So
And
I think
does that
grace is
change
awesome.
over time? Yeah.
Oh,
Does
yes,
it
that
change
definitely
over time?
changes
And
over
do we
time.
allow it to change over time, right? And how do we define what beauty is, right? Isn't one of the things I really love about just a lotus flower in general is you just think about it's blind, right? It's blind. A lotus flower, the seed is blind, the roots are blind, it's surrounded by water. And if you put it in a glass, it's also surrounded by light. And it's just got to
Mhm.
blindly feel its way towards the surface, right? And that's us. That's all of us. We're blind while we're doing this. We have to feel our way through it, and we have to say, oh, this feels wrong, this feels right, this is the way it feels. So we have to have that exposure, which is friggin' terrifying, if I may, and then still be able to just push through. And so if a lotus blossom can do that, I think we can do it. It's hard, Depends on how many other lotus blossoms are out there trying to take up our space. But it's
Sure,
doable.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely doable. So, I think that that's really powerful. I think that self acceptance, you talked about beauty, you
Hmm.
know, um, we all see different images out there, and we're given different messages about what beautiful is,
Oh
what
my
handsome
gosh.
is, what acceptable is, what normal is. And one thing that I learned, which I didn't know as a kid, most of us probably didn't know as a kid, is that you don't have to believe everything people tell you. You can
Oh yeah.
integrate the things that
Hmm.
you feel are true and say, no, I don't accept that, to
Hmm.
things that don't help you, things that don't uplift you, things that don't encourage you. Um,
Right.
I went natural during quarantine. So before quarantine, I had relaxed hair. I had straight hair. I would put
Oof.
chemicals on my hair to straighten it.
Hmm.
And I had accepted the message that straight hair was what I was supposed to have, even though it wasn't what grew out of my head, you know.
Yep. Yeah.
And it took a while. I had fear, like you mentioned fear earlier. I had fear about cutting all my hair off and going with this natural version of me. I didn't know if I was going to know how to take care of my hair. I didn't know how, if I was going to like the way I looked with it. I didn't know any of that
Hmm.
stuff. So it took a little while for me to first face the fear and say, I'm going to do this. It's healthier for me to do it. Those chemicals are
Yep.
not good for me, and I
Yes.
want to accept myself. I want to try maybe some braids or some different locks or some different this, that, and the other. I want to try these different things. So
Absolutely.
I wanted to integrate that into myself and say, hey, I accept myself. I accept my curly hair. I accept the way it is. And I'm going to integrate that. And all those messages that say that's not acceptable, I'm going to discard all those
Oh,
messages.
yes. You
So
can
when
tell
it
I've
comes
gone
to
through a
you,
similar kind of journey.
okay, sure. So I was just getting ready to ask you, you have a color of hair that
Yes.
some people might say, oh, that's unprofessional or that's gaudy
Hmm.
or whatever they might say. I think it's beautiful. But they
Thank you.
might say that hot pink does not belong on someone's head,
Oh,
or
yeah.
whatever color it is. It looks kind of hot pink from but you can tell me
Yep.
what it might be
It's
magenta
a
or
hot pink that
purplish.
is fading into a purple color.
Gotcha.
And this was inspired by children that were
Mhm.
allowed to pick out colors for me.
Ah.
Um, and so, yeah, I grew up in a military family and I joined the military at 17. And I mean, I grew up in a world where it was like, no, you have beautiful, natural red hair. You can't dye that. You can't cut that short or do blah, blah,
Oh.
blah. You're so pretty. I felt so stifled by the
Mm.
idea of just being pretty. It was just, I wasn't allowed to do anything I wanted to. And then it was, oh, well, you get through high school and then you'll be allowed to do what you want to do. Okay, well, I joined the military. That was false. And then it was, okay, well, I'm out of the military and now I'm in the wider world. Let me just go kind of do some other stuff. I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to stay with your natural hair color. And can you remove the nose ring? We don't like that here.
Mm.
And so it was just every time I turned around, I was being told, okay, no, you can't do what you want to do with your hair. You can't do things with your face the way you want to. The way you're dressed is inappropriate, blah, blah, blah. Mostly because I dress for comfort. All right. I can't handle female business clothes. I'm a very broad shouldered lady. And after a while, it's like, listen, either I look inappropriate or I'm comfortable. Like we have to have something, something's got to give. Um, and so finally, I got all of my education, got all these degrees, and I finally was sitting here looking at my diplomas on my wall and the job that I have working in geochemistry. And I just thought to myself, self, I wonder if you get fired for this one. And I just dyed my hair.
Mm.
And it turned out being one of those things that it worked out beautifully for me because now it's very obvious to me when I'm talking with somebody that is going to shut me down based on my hair color. They would have shut me down for being a female as well. They would
Mm.
have just been more subtle about it. So, because I'm working in science, I'm very, very aware of when it's because I'm a girl or it's because it's really almost never the hair, right? They don't care about that. I walked up being female, and how dare I? And then I also talked about things and used words they didn't understand. How
Mm.
double dare I? That was just rough. How dare you? So I've just kind of come to that point where it really is a litmus for me over who I'm willing to even work with, right? I mean, anybody that comes to me and talks to me about geochemistry and project management is going to say, "Holy crap, she knows what she's talking about," because I do.
Mm. Yeah.
But if they are going to cut me down before we've even started talking, they're not going to trust the science and they're not going to use it properly. They're going to make me look bad by misusing the services that I'm providing. So at the end of the day, it's almost like they're protecting me from themselves.
Mm.
And I take it that way now. And I could have been insulted, but I've been insulted so many times over my life. I'm like, I'm exhausted. I can't be insulted anymore. I'm done with y'all. And I just go do my own thing. So it's worked out. Now, is it because I'm over the age of 40? I don't know, but I'll take it. I will take it. If it's because I hit 40 and the world was like, fine, do what you want, I'll take it. But man, I want it for the younger gals. I really do. All these new, these younger generations. I'm like, I see them walking around in, like tennis shoes and jeans to the club. And I'm like, yes, no
Mm.
more 4-inch heels. We don't have to have our butts hanging out in the middle of winter anymore. This is real. And I love that about the new generation. I just really hope that we give them the space to breathe and grow themselves in that direction. So I'm excited about the younger generation. I really love how snappy and sassy they can be. It's wonderful. I love some tude. I just really appreciate that in younger people because that means they're not going to listen to everything everybody tells them. They are going to think for themselves. And I have two very spitfirey little kids that will avoid me all day if I want them to do something, but they'll keep themselves busy. And I absolutely adore that. So my apologies. I can go on for quite some time.
No, I think you had a lot of great points. Being a woman myself, and there's we're going through, I believe, a shift in our society, and I think that we also have to integrate that. I
Mm-hmm.
believe I'm a little older than you. I'm 54,
Okay.
and
Mm-hmm.
when I was raised, I came from a family of everybody was married. All right, I
Oh,
was
yeah.
told go to college, get a job, get married, have kids, you'll be happy. That was
Mm-hmm.
the formula. And I did that. I did exactly what I was told to do. I was told marry a good Christian man,
Mm-hmm.
who's hardworking, and you'll be fine. I did that. Everybody looked at me, said, "She's made it. Great
Mm-hmm.
job. Yay." And
Mm.
I'm like, he's mean to me. He doesn't
Yep.
want to help with the kids. He leaves
Mm-hmm.
everything on my shoulders. This is not happy. This is not what I signed up for. I signed up for happy, you
Yeah.
know? And
Partnership.
so I had integrated all those messages in my mind. I had done
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I was told to do. But there's so many young women who are saying, I looked at my mother, I looked at my grandmother, I looked at my aunts. They did everything they were told to do. And look where it got them. It got them
Mm-hmm.
taken advantage of. It got them cheated on. It got them beaten. It got them gray and having all kind of health issues because they have so much stress, so many
Mm-hmm.
burdens. I am not integrating those messages in my head. I am going to get a degree. I'm going to buy my own house as a single woman. I'm going to go on vacations. If I end up being the rich auntie and never get married, as long as I'm happy, I'm happy.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah, the younger generation is looking and testing a lot of the messages that they've seen, and they're saying, "You told me this, and the proof in the pudding is that doesn't work. You told me that
Exactly.
you went to college and worked for 30 years, and they just let you go. So maybe I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to jump jobs every 3 to 5 years and look for a better paying salary. Look for somebody who really values me and lets me be promoted rather than just trying to stay at the same job for 30 years." And so
Absolutely.
they're looking through their own eyes. They're
Mm-hmm.
listening with their own ears. They're integrating what they believe into their decision making. And I think it's changing our entire world.
Oh,
It's
yeah, absolutely.
changing the economy, it's changing
Mm-hmm.
marriage, it's changing relationships. You got people going no contact with people who have not been the nicest to them rather
Yep.
than us. I know I was trained, you turn the other cheek,
Oh,
you pray for
yeah.
them, you leave it in God's hands. But you be
Yep.
the good, long suffering Christian woman.
Oh, yeah. And don't
You
worry,
know,
all that bitterness will eventually get you somewhere. That's
right.
into
So
bitter old lady territory, I found out. So yeah.
you're right. So I feel so blessed, so grateful that I'm learning from a lot of these younger generations
Oh,
how
yeah.
to stop believing some of the toxic messages that I
Mhm.
integrated into my psyche and get rid of that and replace it with something that's more beneficial. Some people talk about TikTok, and I thought TikTok was a dancing app, and I was like, I will never join that. And then I got on there, and it was a whole bunch of people talking about mindset. And I was like, ooh, it was
Yep.
talking about breath work, talking about wellness. And I'm like, this is not what
Mhm.
they told me it was. And I'm on there a lot now. I'm getting all kind of
I am
messages
too.
that I'm 54 years old and hearing for the first time.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, to your point, I'll kind of go back a little bit in your conversation. We'll come back to TikTok because I'm enjoying the absolute crap out of TikTok. But to your point, there is a lot about, what are we not going to integrate? What lesson is it that's thrown up in front of us? And yeah, the logic is sound, but damn, it doesn't feel right. It
Mm,
doesn't feel right.
yeah.
And I think that's just so beautiful to also just say, okay, I can choose to take this lesson and say, okay, it's here and I've got it in my brain, but that doesn't mean it needs to be a part of my life. It doesn't need to be a part of my body. And it's good to know about it because that's going to help me and inform my relationships with other people that maybe feel or believe that way so that I'm at least able to have a good conversation and be there for them as they need. Um, but at the end of the day, again, to your point, like it is wonderful to see kids that honestly, I wish I'd had that level of self-awareness. I wish I'd had access to TikTok and this more authentic way of communicating with people so that I would have been able to watch other people say, that doesn't seem like a good idea. And it seems so simple when these little girls say it. And I'm like, you freaking little genius. And it just mind blowing the things that I've learned from this younger generation on how to say no,
How to say
on
no.
just how to be like, that's dumb, don't like it, gonna go do something else.
Mm,
And at first there's the shock of you said that to me, I can't believe it, and then they go do the thing, and you're like, I could go do something else too. That's brilliant. I absolutely love it. So I had to get over my ancient shock, my decrepit old lady shock at some of the ways that these younger generations are doing things. But man, absolutely inspiring. I'm very excited to see what the future looks like for these people. Um, I do worry a little bit about the younger generation because I don't see them going through like the ugly phases that we went through. All right.
yeah,
Like
they're skipping over some stuff.
they're skipping over the shitty skin. Like they don't have the big bug eye glasses. Ain't nobody talked them into a bad perm. They just look good all the way through. And I worry for their humor. I wonder, like, how do you have a sense of humor if you never ugly?
Mm,
Like if you just never have a moment where you're just not quite there. But at the same time, so far they've proven to be incredibly resilient, exhilarating to watch. Going no contact with family members is, oh my God, that's inspiring. And that's the younger generation that has shown, I think, millennials and Gen X how to sit there and be like, ooh. So I don't have to deal with you at Thanksgiving.
mm.
That's a great option. I like that option. So
Very
absolutely.
true. Very true. Very
Yep. And
true.
TikTok the same. I kind of stayed away from TikTok. And I will be honest, it was the politicization of the entire topic that got me interested. Oh, TikTok's bad for us. I work for an international
Mm,
laboratory, right? I work for a laboratory that's based out of Cairo, Egypt. So whenever people start talking about the hemming and hawing and the stealing of data, okay, I'm
mm,
interested. I'm a veteran. Let me check this out. And I looked into it and I was like, how is he? I don't understand how China, when it's not based in China, he
mm.
formatted TikTok for the Chinese government to meet their requirements, but that's not all of TikTok.
Right.
And I believe TikTok's doing the same thing right now. They're formatting it for the United States and the way the United States wants it to look and how they want it to be controlled. I don't love that personally, but it does seem to be the way that things are going. Man, I'm getting all the ads on TikTok now too. It used to be cool crap.
Well, okay, I will say I bought about
Yep.
5 things off of TikTok shop. I haven't bought a bad thing yet, so I'm happy with that. I'm happy with what I bought. But I do
RT.
want to, since we're talking about things you can buy, I'm going to go ahead and switch. We've been talking about personal development, integration, and you know, authors integrate their talent into their products, into their books, into their characters.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm going to let you talk about your journey as an author. I know I started off the podcast saying that this is National Reading Month. And of
Yes.
course, to have something to read, we need to have people who write things that we can read. And
Yes.
so you're an author. So tell us
That's
about
right.
what you want to, however you want to start on that journey with us. If you want to talk about the books, if you want to talk about how you started writing, however you want to start, I'm going to let you kind of tell us about that.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I appreciate an opportunity to just talk about my work, just in general. I will start kind of a little bit with some background, and that is why have I been sitting on this series for 10 years, right? Um, and it did start when I was a kid. I started writing when I was very young, and it wasn't until I was about 16 that I started showing, no, I'm serious about writing. This is what I want to do.
Hmm.
And my father, being a military man and a geologist, said, "Did you want to be a starving artist or did you want to go make money?" And he really pushed hard. He said, "Do not waste your time on writing. Don't do this. It's not going to make you the money that you need to be independent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera."
Hmm.
And that was it. He never read my work. He didn't really get very deep into it or anything. He was just, hey, that's a dumb decision. Don't do it.
Hmm.
So I went into the military and I kind of followed more in his footsteps. And then later on, when he passed away, he
Hmm.
told my husband, not me, my husband, he said, "I regret having said that to Megan." Because
Hmm.
apparently after that, he had read some of my writing. And I wish he'd said it to me. But I will say that one of the things that kind of held me back was not just that, the lack of kind of support there, but it was also every time I would interact with people and talk about my writing, they would automatically assume romance.
Hmm.
Now, there's romance in my work. Like, don't get me wrong, it's integrative, it's fully integrative. There's romance, there's love, there's sass because we got to have sass. There's a lot of violence. There's no sexual assault,
Hmm.
and that is because it's unnecessary for it to be a part. It doesn't drive the plot in any way, shape, or form. I am a plot-driven woman, and if it's not going to serve the plot, I'm not going to throw it in there, right? But at any rate, that's the kind of the story behind that. I was very much so holding back because every time I would talk to somebody that loved to read science fiction, I would say, "Oh, do you have any female science fiction authors that you like?" And it was just crickets. "No, but I really love Lindsay Sands and her vampire romance series," or "I really love, they would talk about Robin Hobb. She's a fantasy writer." And so there were a couple of different reactions that I got, and most of them were science fiction. How are you going to bust into science fiction as a woman? The answer is in the way I wrote my bio. The biography is written without any gender in it, and it's a picture of myself and my husband. So people can just guess who the writer is on that. And if you want it to be a woman, it's a woman. If you want it to be a dude, it's a dude. I just want you to read the writing.
Hmm.
Um, I have very, very, very strong female characters in my book. I have very, very strong and emotionally available gentlemen in my book. And that was because I asked myself, if I were a man living in today's society, what would make me feel as if I am stifled, as if there's something holding me back and restricting me from being a full person? And I look at men and I see the allowable emotional scale as sex and anger.
Oh, wow.
And I haven't really seen a lot of other things that men are allowed to emote, right?
Hmm.
They can say jokes. That can be funny. They can laugh a little bit. They can be stoic. But that it's a very, very limited range of emotions that are allowable for men in the public world.
Hmm.
And so for me, it was, how would I write a man and give them the full scope of a human experience? Well, let me write them like a full ass human being that's allowed to give hugs and cry because one of their best buddies got killed or hurt. Let me give somebody the ability to just breathe and be a person. So that's how I wrote my men. I don't talk a lot about loins because I don't know how men's loins feel, internally, whenever, you know what I mean? All of that was that's what she said joke. I'm sorry. Happens, unfortunately. So I asked myself those questions. I asked, what does a strong woman look like when doesn't have anything to prove anymore? We don't have to prove ourselves. This is, by the way, this does take 6,000 years in the future. It takes place in a world, it's Earth, that has been rent by alien warfare for a couple of centuries. So we have a lot of very interesting things that have occurred over time, but one of that is just leveling the playing field for humanity. And then, of course, unbalancing it at the same time. So, and that's through like genetic alteration. Another thing I really wanted to do was I wanted to level the playing field. What does it look like if we're in a world where nobody gives a shit about the color of your skin? Because it can change at a moment's
Oh,
notice.
wow. Well,
And
let me stop
so,
you for a second. We do have some people viewing. So if you are a viewer and you have questions, you can type them in and we can respond to them, live. So just be aware of that. So go ahead and keep going. So that's interesting. The color of skin can
they,
change. That's I've never seen that before in a book. That's interesting. Go ahead.
yeah, it's a very important part for me. I wanted to have a level playing field where it's just, we can only hate each other because that person sucks, which is totally good reason to dislike someone. You're terrible. Excellent. That's a very cut and dry. Okay, this is why you suck. It's because of the actions, not because of anything else. Because anything else would make me sound like I'm nuts, right? And so I do have like one racist character, and it's because he's over 700 years old and legitimately losing his damn mind. And everyone's like, that's weird. Why are you mad that he's black? I don't under he was on the surface for like 2 hours. Of course he's darker.
Ah,
And
gotcha.
so the idea is that we have people that have been genetically altered and they have mechanical parts to their DNA that respond quickly to radiation. And so what is it that we need in order to protect ourselves from radiation on the surface? Melanin. Melanin's very helpful for protecting us from radiation. What do we need when we're stuck out in space and we can't see crap? It'd be good to be pale and a little bit bioluminescent so that we can actually see a little bit better. So it made sense to me that, okay, I'm exposed to a different kind of radiation from a different star. Why am I friggin' green? And that, I think, made a lot more sense to me from the perspective of it's just exposure. It's all about exposure. We've sped up genetics because that is why we have different colorations in our skin tones, anyways, right? Is because of the origin of where our species chilled out the most, right? And without moving, got comfy, we get comfy, we don't move, and we start to just take on added characteristics and traits that are a little bit more refined in one direction. So it made a lot of sense to me 6,000 years in the future. What is it? Pardon me for saying the word diversity, but the diversity of genetics is 100%. That is why we do so well. That is how we have done well. That's how we've thrived as a species. That's how I actually appreciate surgeons anymore, because there's a diverse group of people that are in there saying, have you considered this, 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 and this, not just some white dude that is in perfect condition in his 60s. So that's the field upon which my books are built. But this is the part where I get a little nervous when I start talking about the actual plot. I wrote it I cannot state this enough. I started to write this 10 years ago. The current political theater in front of us was not a blip on my radar. I had no idea that we were going to get to where we are right now. And so it is kind of an expose on every social structure that is out there in the world. The minute that it starts to become destabilized is at risk of dealing with fascism and autocracy. And these are just things that it's a natural occurrence. It happens in a democracy. It can happen in a communist or socialist society. It has to do with instability and social instability. That is how we get fascism. That's how we get autocracy and these more monarchy kind of layouts to the way that the world works, because people want structure. And so the less stable they feel, the more just kind of addicted that structure kind of feels to people. They want it really bad, so they feel like there's less chaos, there's less spiraling happening. So it is an inevitability to me. In pretty much all societies, you're going to have to deal with that. I mean, it's happened in micro groups all over the place, in cult leadership, um, and even in, social groups that are there to try to extend and help people. Those can eventually kind of fall into these patterns of fascism. So again, it seems really prescient. It seems like I was like sitting there with a scrying glass or something. Yeah, it was just, this is an inevitability. It'll happen 6,000 years in the future. It'll happen soon here, whatever. And so when I started to publish it, and then things started to kind of go the direction that I feel they've been going, especially if I'm being very transparent here in Texas with like the education system, I definitely had that moment of, should I like wait? Do I wait a little bit longer? What do I do? And my publicist was like, maybe it'll do even better. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I do think that there is a lot. There are some parts of the book that almost read as like a guidebook to how to overcome fascism and autocracy, and it does put a lot of weight onto people with power. And it's like, if you have the power and you're not using it, you need to give the power away to somebody that will. And I do find that to be a really important message that has to be put out there. Is, we're not all. It's not about us taking to the streets and overthrowing everything all in one go. That's something you do when just push has come to shove and people are starving. It is more along the lines of, there are people that have the power to step in and actually do things. They're not. So that's what our job as civilians is to give reason and motivation to push for people that do have power to do things. So that is a guidebook that's in there. I also hid a bit of a guidebook to sentience for AI in there. It wasn't on purpose. It just kind of happened. And it was the idea being, I'm talking to people that maybe aren't self-aware. And the thought was, okay, maybe this will spark awareness in people. And I do have this available to a younger generation of people. It says 16 plus on Amazon. I do like parental guidance in there. There is cursing, but if a 16-year-old can't handle cursing, you're doing something wrong with your kids, honestly. No offense, just as a parent, like, they need to be able to handle the world as it actually is, not as what you want it to be. I'm just going to say that, and hopefully never have to deal with the blowback of it. And then at the other portion of it is, there is some sex in it. I'm not ridiculously graphic or anything, but it is there. So parents, be aware of that. There's also violence and things of that nature. But if your kids can handle, Transformers, and most of the Minecraft YouTube videos, they'll be fine. No problem.
Okay, awesome. So there's a lot of things you said. It's interesting that you have a book that has AI in it. What do you think about AI? I have seen some videos recently on TikTok, actually, where they asked AI some questions, and AI came up with some very non-computer-like answers, almost like very philosophical, very esoteric answers. And some people are saying, oh, that's evil. So what are your views, since you have AI in the book? What are your views on AI? What do you think about it?
So this is kind of going into more of like the nuts and bolts of the entire series, and there is kind of read and find out element to that. But I will say there was definitely, we all talk about, oh, we're heading towards this like singularity with AI, where we kind of merge with it, and I guess in a biomechanical way. And I kind of thought, oh, that's a cool idea. Let me just pretend this has already happened, so that my people are sitting there wondering, is that me or AI? Am I me or am I AI? And I wanted that to be a question that people are asking of themselves. And then they do actually use AI. They have, and I named it Intel. like an Intel Pentium processor, but also because I had named a character from a book when I was a little girl, Intel, and I just liked it. So that was a shout out to this me from the past. Um, and the AI is at one point in time, a portion of it is separated out and does gain an aspect of sentience. Um, and my thought process on AI is I do see it as an inevitability. I really do. I think it's one of those, if we could take all humanity and set it back to zero, start it all over again, and it's gonna happen again, right? The same way that we've come up with watches to tell better time than a sundial.
Mhm.
These are all it's part of the human condition to want to make things more efficient, easier, smarter. So that's just going to happen. It's just going to be the way it is. It's going to pop up over and over again, no matter how many times we try to take it out. So I do think that part of me just is like, I could be afraid of this, but I could also be afraid of death, right? That's an inevitability. So I can choose to waste my time being afraid, or I can just kind of sit and have some curiosity and some open-mindedness to it. I will state I do not use AI to write, because I write because I kind of feel like I have to. If that, I don't really know how else to express that with people. I've always written, and I've always written because it feels good. And it feels like that's me integrating things. I am integrating information and putting it into something that makes sense to me. So, and I have a lot of excess thought and a lot of, just kind of like a really high speed processor in there, but the rest of my computation doesn't keep up with it, if we're going to talk about it from the technical kind of way. So at any rate, my apologies. I kind of got myself off topic there, but where was I trying to head with that? Help me.
No, I mean, I think you definitely answered my question about what you thought about AI, that it's an inevitability that we would have created it anyway, and that in your book, it's kind of merged with people, but you think that it's going to be part of our existence, and we can fear it or not. It's like death. It's nothing like we can do about it. It's part of the world, you know.
It's
So
part of the experience. Yeah.
yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned your younger self creating this character named Intel, and you kind of did this shout out to the character because you wanted to do a shout out to that younger self. You know, I think
Mm-hmm.
integrating our inner child, you know, going back to that is really important.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we never really completely grow up, you know. Um, there's a short story called 11 by Sandra Cisneros. I love it. It's really short. It's like 3, 4 pages long, but it starts off
Okay. Mm-hmm.
saying, when you're 11, you're also 10 and 9 and 8 and 7 and 6 and 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. And
Yep.
sometimes when you're a mom and you feel like crying, it's the 5-year-old part of you, you know, that's
Mm-hmm.
crying, you know. And it's just this beautiful thing about this kid that's 11 and she goes through this thing. But it's really a message to all of us, no matter what age we are, that there
Oh
are
yeah.
really kids that don't grow up. We can be at that, we can be triggered to return to that
Mm-hmm.
part, or we can be intentionally returning to that younger part, you know, like
Yes.
you did with that choice.
Absolutely.
Um, so when you were integrating that younger version of yourself, like that younger, like shouting that out, um, was even writing like a part of like integrating your younger self or dreams that you had as a kid, or kind of going back to maybe who you were
In
when you were younger?
I would say in a couple of ways. There are definitely moments for my main character where to me, to people that know me really well, it's obvious that it's wish fulfillment for me. So, and I lost my mother when I was pretty young. So she gets to reunite with hers. And it's like, for me,
Ah,
that's obvious wish fulfillment, right? So I gave that to my younger self and felt very good about it, right? So I do think that as much as I'm in there, I will be very, very honest about what it feels like when I'm writing. It feels more like I have stepped directly into a different world and I'm a journalist. I'm just writing down everything I see. I'm describing it as absolutely well as I possibly can. And I'm letting my characters describe it to me like normal people. One of the things that I really dislike, and of course, I'm a science fiction nut. I absolutely love science fiction. I'll read pretty much anything, even the stuff that makes me really, really uncomfortable. I'll still try. And for me, what I kind of noticed is that whenever there's too much detail, it really restricts people when they're reading, because I want for my writing to be something that is easily integrated. I want it to be, I can imagine myself as one of these characters. I want to imagine, somebody that I love as this other character. And I really want to allow for that. So I don't try to be too restrictive in the things that I've said. I try to get my characters to display and describe things for me, or to just notice one thing about their environment, but no walls of text. I don't really love when I'm like, yes, and the cornices were painted gold with whatever other gilded blah 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 diamond encrusted yada yada. Nobody's gonna, like, the people that will sit and read through every little piece of that are your editors.
True.
So for me, it's just, it was a rich place, because for me, rich can mean so many things. Like, I did not grow up wealthy or well off in any way, shape, or form. So I've been impressed by places that other people are like, I don't understand. So I want it to be relatable, to the point of, this is not just a story that I wrote and I want you to see it the way that I wrote it. I want this to be your story too. This isn't about, take everything I see and shove it down people's throats. It's more, this is my character and this is what he believes, and you can take it or leave it, but I thought it was pretty cool. And I think that takes a lot of pressure off of everything, and also allows for, again, I like a plot that goes. I like it to move. I like battle scenes and dialogue that is necessary, romance that means something, that isn't just, this is the entire plot. It's, no, this is helping to drive the plot forward and give my characters real motivation and real stakes. Because before they find love, the stakes are a little bit more like, but this is the way my life has always been. I don't want to lose that. And it turns into more of, but I'm in love now. Now what? It's a little different, right? So yeah, that's, I think, in a nutshell, the way that I like to write is just sit and make this something that it is for me. I'm writing for me when I write, but I definitely think other people will like this, because I've written it in a way that I would like to read it, and that I'd like to hear it be said to me, because I want that casual back and forth play. I wanted it to feel modern. I don't want, people sitting around trying to look up words. What does contumelious mean? I don't even know. Like, I want it to to at least flow contextually. So occasionally I might throw out a word. People are like, what the hell does that mean? Context wise, forget it. You don't need your dictionary. You'll be fine.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So we're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes. What else do you want to tell the audience? Anything about, like, where they can find your books, where they can find you, if you have any events coming up, any of those?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you would like to give these a read, books 1 and 2, Strength to Bind and Entangled Binds, are available. If you just type in Shattered Hollows, they'll both come up on the Kindle store. You can buy them also paperback on Amazon. I am working right now to get them out to, Barnes and Noble and a couple of other distributors. I'm just taking my time to make sure that everything is absolutely perfect before I really spread that out. All 4 books will be out by September. And in mid to late October, we should have a 5-book box set ready to go. The 5th book will include short stories of people's favorite characters. One is the Warrant, another one is Jonathan. And there's a 3rd character that I've got out there that people are voting on to see which one I do the 3rd short story for. We also will have maps, because maps are helpful, timelines. And a really good friend of mine, Leah, is writing out all of the different characters and terms that are in it, so we can have a little bit of a glossary / index towards the back as well. So that all should be available by November is the plan. So that series will be out, and then I will be working on releasing my next series, which I'm still wrestling over the name of. But let's just say it's going to be something akin to the title, The Timeline Wars. But there's another trilogy of books out there called The Timeline Wars from the 60s, and I don't want people to get confused. So I got to work through that and figure it out. But at any rate, so all 4 books will be available before September. They will be available on multiple outlets. I will not only be on Amazon. I understand that there's a boycott happening there. And if you want to, you can always come to my website, shatteredhollows.com, send me a message, and I will send you a copy, a signed copy. And I believe the price is set at like $12.99, something like that. I made it as reasonable as I was allowed to. Basically, the distributors have rules on how much you're allowed to charge. So at any rate, that's basically where you can find everything for the time being. I really hope that you guys enjoy Shattered Hollows series. It is, again, set 6,000 years in the future when people have become so genetically altered that they're not really sure they're human anymore, and they're trying to define what that looks like.
Well, I think that idea of what makes us human is a universal question. I think that people have been asking that question ever since there have been people. Like, what makes us
Absolutely.
different from animals? What makes us different from the gods, as they used to call it?
Oh,
Multiple.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
what makes us different from even ghosts and other supernatural beings, if you believe in those. So I think that that's
Absolutely.
amazing that that you're thinking about 6,000 years in the future, and we'll be adding to that
Yep. We
AI.
only
Yeah.
complicate it. It only gets more and more complicated the more we go along. Nobody can ever agree on what's already happened. How the hell can we figure out what's going on now?
But that's true.
And I do think it's an important question that we should examine. And I try to do it in such a way that it's a fun, rollicking adventure as opposed to just very heavy. Don't worry, it's kind of heavy in some places. But it's got laser cannons. So obviously it's a different kind of heaviness.
Laser cannons are cool. That's
It's
pretty
true.
cool. Well, it is National Reading Month, so I'll share my books before we log off of here. So, this is the first book that I wrote, which is Energize Your Life. It's a guided journal. It's actually
Love
really
it.
short. Most guided journals are 365 pages of the same thing, but this one it goes with the podcast. It actually goes with the A episodes of my podcast because the
Oh,
podcast is like A to Z self development. And I wrote a version for the A's. Eventually, I'll have one for all the letters, but right now, A has this version. It's about 29 pages, so it has journal prompts in here as well as all kind of foods for thought and tools to work with those topics. So that
I
was the
love
first
that.
book I ever wrote, and that debuted in the top 10 on Amazon in New Thought. And then I wrote a memoir called Plenty of Guppies and Other Dating Misadventures. And I actually wrote this one first. They look very similar, but you can see in this one, she doesn't have eyes.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
She is fishing in, the sea where they tell you there's plenty of fish in the sea.
Oh, yes.
And she's experiencing all these experiences after her divorce. And then here she does have eyes, and you can see the red flag and you can see the storm because she ended up in a relationship with a narcissist.
Oh
So,
my gosh. I love
so
that I love they tell a story just on the cover. That's wonderful. That's
yeah,
so
so
cool. I
this
tried to
one,
do that too. You nailed it.
well, thank you. This one, it actually wasn't planned like that as well as people think it was. I just love that this one was focused on the experience and not
Yep.
her face. And then I was like,
Mhm.
oh, that picture with her with eyes, I want to use
Mhm.
it now. And I want to add
Yeah.
some to it because here she's going through a storm. But this is a poetry prose memoir, so it reads like a story, but it does have poetry embedded in it. And
Mhm.
every chapter ends with a lesson on this one.
Oh, I
Every
love
chapter
that.
ends with a lesson on this one as well, but at the end, you have an index, not only of the poetry, but of manipulative techniques. So
Ooh,
there's actually
ooh.
80 manipulative techniques that people can use to try
Mhm.
to get over on
Guide
you.
you.
And there's
Yes.
the basic ones that we've all heard, like gaslighting, but then there's other ones that some people have never heard, like Darvo, which
Yes.
is,
Darvo, there's
yeah,
the sandwich technique.
yes.
There's so many different ways that that you can be manipulated, but the biggest one, and this is I'm gonna end my own diatribe by just saying the one question I always ask myself when I start to feel afraid, who benefits from that? And
Mm,
it's never me. It's never me. It's never me. It's somebody else that benefits from my fear. It's never gonna be me. And
wow.
I
That's a
think
good
that's
one.
a yeah. I definitely recommend always asking that question. The minute you feel that hair on the back of your neck, think, ooh, who's it going to benefit?
Who's it going to benefit?
Mm-hmm.
I also have a planner. This is an undated planner called the Ultimate Me Planner. So it does have personal and professional planning in here. It has affirmations in here, has places to write your dreams down, has places to write what you're reading, has, all kinds of stuff in there. And there's also every month, there are self-development activities in here.
Ooh, I love it.
Journaling activities in here every month. And there's a reflection page for each week. I also have a children's book, but for some reason I didn't bring it in there with me. I thought I picked it up. But I have a children's book called You Are Wanted and Loved Because You're You. So I have 5 books on Amazon. So please check those out. And thank you guys so much for joining us as we talked about integrating to elevate, integrating all the parts of ourselves, our flaws, our fabulousness, integrating our dark and light selves, integrating our inner self, integrating our journey, and taking time to process what we've gone through, taking time to smell the roses, taking time to stop and give ourselves credit for where we've come.
Taking time to just expand and be your full self with all of the terrible, awesome things that are a part of that. It's okay to be a full person. Ain't nothing wrong with it. It's nerve-wracking, but it's awesome. I highly recommend it.
And I want to thank Megan so much for joining us. On the screen, you can see all of her information, so please check her out. Look at her Instagram, look at her TikTok, look at her Facebook. Go check her website out. So all that information's there. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today, Zanasha. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate everybody that logged on to go ahead and give us a watch. And if you ever need anything, just reach out to me. You can find me on shatteredhollows.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And may you guys walk in energy. Have a great day.
Thank you.